All right, Gail, thank you so much for allowing me to record this portion of the interview. I was very excited to talk to you when I saw your resume come through. You have really great experience, extremely professional. You're here local in Volusia County. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the work that you've been doing most recently, please?
Well, my most recent position was a contract position at Boys and Girls Club. And the reason that they hired me is they were looking for a Swiss Army knife, as Dr. Kamisha called it, somebody that can do a lot of things. And so since I can do a little bit of accounting and a little bit of marketing and a little bit of executive support and, all of the things, that's why they hired me for the position. I decided not to stay with them after my contract was over because it was a lot. I was regularly working like 10 to 12-hour days. And I think that they had some unrealistic expectations for the role. So it just was not a good fit. And that's why I chose to leave.
All righty. And before that, where were you?
Yeah, before that, I was at Tomorrow Night Photography, and I was the production manager there. So when I started at Tomorrow Night Photography, I was actually her only employee. So it was just me and Tamara, and she grew the business and kept hiring more and more people. So, through the years, my roles there changed. I ended up as the production manager towards the end. And so I was in charge of all of the client deliverables. So I did all of the post-production, ordered all of the prints, designed albums, all of that sort of stuff. And then I was also the backup for everyone. So if anyone was out because they weren't feeling well or vacation or whatever, I filled in for the photographer, for the salesperson, for the office manager, all of that. And then also I was always, from when I started on, I was always in charge of the payroll. So started with just submitting my hours and then ended up submitting hours and commissions for everybody.
Okay. And then before that, you had another job I feel that was relevant to some of the jobs that I'm hiring for. So tell me a little bit about that one too.
So before that, I was at the house next door. I was the finance assistant and the marketing coordinator. So when I first started there, I had a part-time role as just the finance assistant. And I was the assistant to the CFO, helping him out with whatever his needs were, as well as doing all of the accounts payable. And I did the cash deposits and helped with audits and all that sort of stuff. And then after I'd been there for about a year, the development coordinator left. She retired. And so they didn't want to hire another development person. They're like, but you have marketing skills. You've got a communications degree, right? And I'm like, yeah. So then I took on marketing coordinator as well. So then I was full-time instead of part-time and I, doing all of the things. So as marketing coordinator, I set up branding guidelines because they didn't have them, made sure all of the branding materials were consistent, handled all the social media, the websites, and all of that sort of stuff.
Okay, wonderful. And how long were you there?
I was at House Next Door for 5 years. Total.
5 years. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, I noticed that you had really great tenure on your resume. And then the job at the photography studio.
Yeah, I was there for 4 years as well.
4 years. Okay. Yeah. And then the most recent job, you mentioned at the beginning of your conversation.
It was a 90-day contract. So 90-day contract. I chose not to stay after that.
Okay, perfect. All right. And you have flexible availability, looking for full-time?
I'm looking for full-time, preferably somewhere in Volusia County. I do not want to have to drive to Orlando. And I know that you just do Volusia County, so I'm very excited about that. I'm flexible with my hours. I am looking for something that's around 40 hours a week regularly. The last 2 jobs that I've had, I regularly worked 10 to 12 hours a day, and that's a lot. And I'm looking to be more like 8, maybe 9 hours a day, more like a regular schedule type thing.
Fair enough. I understand. And I feel like this does go without saying, but I wouldn't be doing my job as a recruiter if I didn't ask you. Tell me about your software and computer skills.
Yeah. Microsoft Office, Google Workspace, all of the Adobe Creative Suite. And then for finance, I've used Sage and Concur and QuickBooks. I've used CRM when I was at Tomorrow Night Photography. It was one called Tave, so it's probably one you haven't heard of before. It's one made specifically for photography studios, but it functions like any other CRM.
Okay, wonderful. And customer service skills. I mean, I feel like it does go without saying once you do start talking to someone and you're interviewing them that they do have that professional approach to clients. But with what role that you mentioned, you talked about three different positions. Were any of those customer forward focused?
Well, tomorrow night photography, it sort of just depends, right? So like when I first started there and I was the only employee, I was the person that talked to everybody, met them when they got to the studio. If they had any issues afterwards, I was the one that they dealt with. And then when I ended up as the production manager, I was the one that dealt with everything after the photo session. So like if they had any additional edits that they needed, or if they wanted some revisions in their album, all of that sort of stuff, I handled all of that. Also, Tamara wasn't really in the studio most of the time. She worked from home. So I was the first person to deal with any issues that arose before escalating to Tamara.
Okay, wonderful. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop this portion of the interview. We just do a little clip for this part, but we'll talk a little bit more off camera, and then of course, our next steps is to market you to some of our clients, and of course, then they'll dive a little bit deeper into some of the questions that we just chatted about. But don't go anywhere. I'll come right back. I'm just going to stop the recording. I think so. I think I'm going to stop it. There we go.